Hey guys, Josh from Carl's Mower and Saw. So you just picked up a STIHL MS 182 chainsaw and you got all these directions, right? You got thrown the owner's manual and go cut some wood, have some fun. We're gonna go over some things today. We're gonna slow down. You know, maybe your chainsaw is resting in the woodshed right now and you're bored, you're sitting inside, it's cold and rainy out, so you got your phone, you're gonna watch this YouTube video. And you're gonna learn a little bit more about this saw and how to take care of it and get the most out of it so that you can have this saw running and operating in 20 years. That's what we want. We don't want this to be a 5-year saw or a 10-year saw. We want this to be a 20 or longer lifespan on a saw. And that's what STIHLs are known for. Part of it is your job though, right? To take care of it, to do it the right way. Let's start with some of the super simple basics, maybe some of the stuff that you missed, some of the stuff you ignored, and that's safety, right? So this is a chainsaw. These things are dangerous. I'm sure you've all seen some gruesome pictures of what can happen with a chainsaw. That doesn't happen every day. It doesn't happen every year. There's people that go years without a problem. I highly recommend chaps. This is for when that accident happens, right? So chaps, these are a 6-layer chap. They align really well with the power of this saw. When the cutter tooth comes in contact with this material, it's simply gonna shred and it will stop the chain in like a second. It's crazy how fast, and it's gonna save you from having a bad injury. So if you have a chainsaw, let's start by picking up some chaps. That's a big start. And then we've got some head safety stuff, right? So our ears, can't get another pair of those. My ears are starting to go, okay? Protect your ears, protect your face. If I'm just cutting firewood, really a helmet and safety glasses are probably fine. But I love this STIHL helmet. My face is fully protected, my head is protected, my earmuffs are there. It's comfortable to wear. And if you're actually felling trees, it is a great idea to have a helmet because you never know what's above you, right? You could have a dead limb come as that tree starts to move. So helmet, or at least safety glasses and earmuffs. Gloves are also recommended when handling a chain just to protect your hands. If you've watched some of our videos, you'll see I cut myself all the time. I'm very smart at that. Okay, we've got safety. So I'm not gonna say it's out of the way, but we've got that covered. Very important. Next is fuel, right? So this is gonna run on gasoline, a fuel oil mixture. And yes, we could grab our gas can. We could grab our mix oil. We could go to any gas station and buy 87 octane fuel, put it in. But we're starting to ask for problems when we do that. Fuel's a problem. Gas is bad. Gas separates, gas absorbs moisture, gas is corrosive. I don't know why it keeps getting worse, but it does. So I wanna highly recommend ethanol-free fuel. So hopefully you have a pump around you, get ethanol-free fuel. That's usually an 89 or 90 octane. The life of that gas is gonna be significantly longer. That said, we want to go through our gas. And there's some misconceptions is how bad does gas go bad? Man, there's so many variables. Right? There's variables on temperature and moisture and how long was that gas actually in the tank before you bought it? How full is your gas can, right? How much air is it being exposed to? So I try to, at my house, go through my gas every 2 months. That's pretty quick, right? And I know you can go longer, but we do see those problems starting to get worse as we have gas life get longer, right? As we start getting into weeks or months 3 and 4 and 5. So I like to buy a gas can that's small that I'm gonna burn through. So I like this 1 1/4 gas can, grab my STIHL HP Ultra mix with a gallon of ethanol free and bust through it. Now, if you're not a heavy user or you're using it so sporadically, I think the answer is Moto Mix. This is really the ultimate. It is more expensive, but the frustration factor goes way down. We're talking a 93 octane. We don't buy a 93 octane ethanol free, at least in my area at the pump. And it's not just a normal gasoline. This is an alkylate. I'm not a genius when it comes into fuel. I'm gonna get smarter on that. But this alkylate is an engineered fuel that totally burns different, that has a way different shelf life. This is 2 years once I crack the lid. And when it goes bad, it doesn't leave the deposits and cause the corrosion. It just kind of loses its poop, right? It doesn't want to fire. So Moto Mix, awesome. Either A, just hibernate with it, or B, if you're gonna use a gallon a year, which is a fair amount of cutting, go with Moto Mix. We have bar oil, super important, right? So we have a chain that's spinning at a high rate of speed. We have a lot of friction between chain and bar. More friction if I'm running a dull chain. We'll talk on that a little bit more later, but bar oil, and we want to use bar oil. We don't want to use 1030 or 1040 or 1550 that we have just hanging on the shelf for our vehicle. Bar oil, sticky, tacky, adheres to bar and chain, reduces pitch. Think bar oil. Speaking of chain, let's real quickly grab files. So this runs a 3/8 Pico chain, also known as a 91 chain. So we're gonna need a 5/32 file. Okay, and there's lots of ways I can get it and I can do it. I can grab a 3-pack of files. This is just something, a raw file. Maybe I got a good eye and I'm steady and I'm good at it. This, or I can get this fancy guide system that gives me a little bit more of an angle that I need to keep my file, or we can get this all-in-one system that is taking down, giving you the angles, but also taking down the rakers in front of the cutter tooth at the right level. So the way a chain works, it's not like it's just a chunk of metal that's sharp that's just gnawing at it. It actually works like a planer. You ever used like a wood planer? And so you set the blade depth and it shaves off curls, ribbons of wood. That's the same thing a chain is doing. It's just like a bunch of little planers on here, right? But as this chain wears, it's at a ramp, it's at an angle like this. As you sharpen that chain and you wear it back, the front of the plane is sitting up higher than the tip of the cutter and it doesn't cut as well. So you have to take that raker down at a certain level, at a certain rate. That's where this comes in handy. Okay, when do I sharpen my chain? When you start seeing those nice chips, ribbons, curls, chips, something that's, you know, at least a 1/4 inch long, we'll say. When you start seeing those drop in size becoming finer, it's time to stop, time to start sharpen your chain. When you have dust and smoke coming out of your bar, you're way past. Why do I want to sharpen my chain before that? Because if you go to that point, you are going to spend a lot of time sharpening a lot of teeth and get very frustrated about halfway through, and you get lazy, and suddenly instead of being at a 30-degree angle, you're at a 20-degree angle, and instead of going level, you're pushing up, everything goes sideways. So sharpen often. As that chain cut quality drops, sharp. How do I keep my chain sharp? Stay out of the dirt. Dirt is the killer. I can kill this chain in 3 seconds. I can. I have a brand new chain, go out, make a cut, boom, through the log, hit the ground underneath it, dead. Unbelievable how quickly you can dull a chain. All right, let's get into where fuel and oil go, how to start it, how to tension the chain, how to maintenance it, since we covered all that other stuff. Right here, I have my fuel cap. I'm simply gonna flip up, give it a 1/4 turn, pull out, put in my moto mix or my gasoline, and my bar oil on the front, same thing. I recommend, and really the rule of thumb is every time I fill the gas, I fill the bar oil. You will never run out of bar oil before you run out of gas if you do it that way. So do it that way. Chain tensioning. Okay, we've got our gas in, we've got our bar oil in. Chain tensioning. I need my bar wrench. I'm gonna loosen my bar nut like so. Let me loosen that chain. Let me give you an idea of what happens. So chains are gonna stretch, right? There's heat. You got a bunch of rivets, you got a bunch of wear points. Steel has pre-stretched all their chains, so we have minimal stretching, but it still happens over time. So you see this chain is loose. To tension this chain, I'm simply going to lift up on the back of the bar. I'm gonna put my wrench, screwdriver, in the chain tensioner screw, and I'm gonna rotate that clockwise until the chain comes in contact with the bottom of the bar, and then I'm gonna tighten the bar nut, okay? Always make sure before, and we'll talk about the brake a little bit more in a minute, but make sure the brake is off when you're tensioning your chain. Now that chain, there's no sag and there's no drag. It runs very smoothly and there's no sag on it. So we always say no sag, no drag, right? No sag, no drag. We don't want it so tight that it's working the engine. We don't want it hanging loose. If you let that chain run loose, we wear the bar out way faster. As that chain comes around, it's gonna slap the bar right there. And we'll end up like wearing this dime-shaped or quarter-shaped thing out of the tip of the bar. So keep it tight. Also, you increase your chance of that chain jumping off. A loose chain jumping off. I've never been hit by one, but it always freaks you out when a chain jumps off. Steel's built-in safety mechanisms to keep that from being a problem. We'll hit on that in just a minute. Also, when it comes to chain and bar maintenance, rotating this bar is key, right? Because 90% of your wear is always happening on the bottom of the bar. So if I can flip it over, every time I do a new chain, flip the bar over, flip the bar over. Let's take this cover off. Loosen the bar nut, take a quick look underneath here at what's going on. So we have our clutch sprocket mechanism, we have our chain tensioner tab, we have our chain tensioner screw, and we have our bar nut. To replace the chain, simply loosen that screw just a little bit. So we've got our sag back in place. I'm gonna pull the bar and chain off, pull the chain off. Oil is coming out this groove right here. There's this slot right here. So that's where the bar oil is coming out. And it's feeding into, let's flip it around, it'd be feeding into that hole right there. Small little hole, okay? Now when I rotate the bar over like this, there's a hole on the other side. That hole has been exposed to the sawdust, to the dirt. And what can happen is that hole will get built up with debris, and especially if you're running a dull chain, right, where you get that finer powder, that's more likely to pack in there. So whenever you rotate a bar, make sure that your oiler hole is clear, is clean. Otherwise you're creating a dam, and that bar oil that's trying to come out is gonna probably come out and just dribble all down below, but you won't feed your bar and chain the oil that you need. All right, air filter, very important. This saw is sucking in thousands of gallons of air. So this is a 35cc chainsaw, 35.8 cc chainsaw, putting out 2.2 horsepower. And quickly, I would say it's probably sucking in an hour, around 5,000 to 6,000 gallons of air. I've done the math on some of the larger saws, and I know it's in the 13,000 gallons of air in an hour. That's unbelievable, right? Grab all those milk jugs, line them up. That much air is coming through this air filter. And we have dirty air, right? We're cutting, there's sawdust, there's debris, there's dust. Okay, so air filter is underneath this cover, 3 screws. STIHL's done a really good job of making this cover fit tight, giving you a good rubber seal around this air filter, but I still want you to take a look at it, right? Pull that cover off, take a look at the filter. What's it look like? You can wash it, you can clean it. I would not recommend high pressure air, you know, grabbing the air nozzle and blowing it out. It comes off by lifting up on this clip, boom, take it in the house, clean it off, wash it off. If it's starting to degrade, come get a new one. They're cheap, it's worth it, the life of this saw. When you go to put it back on, you'll see these 2 little fingers, these little tabs, they fit in a groove, slot, and push back down, clicked in, dialed in, ready to go. Spark plug right here on the top. To take this spark plug boot off, you kind of want to wiggle it back and forth like that. Don't just grab it and rip it off, or things will end up wrong. And then grab your bar wrench, pull that spark plug out. Once a year? I don't know. It's really tough to answer how often you should do a spark plug. They're $5 or $6. They're fairly cheap. Maybe it's every 2 years. Just throw one in once in a while. On top of that, the other maintenance item besides air filter and spark plug is your fuel filter. That's in the tank. To get to that, you've got to go fishing. So first thing is we want an empty tank. So we want to run out of gas. And that filter life will be affected massively by what I'm putting into it. Am I putting in good gas or bad gas? Am I careful with my gas handling of sorts? Pull that cap off and you'll see the fuel line right there, that black rubber hose there. I usually take a wire, make a little hook, go fishing, about the only time I catch anything. Pull out the fuel filter, pop it off, put a new one in. I would say for the average homeowner, let's just do that every 5 years, right? You're probably putting on 10 hours a year. If you're using it heavier, do it annually. Again, they're cheap and you're gonna avoid a lot of problems. You get a filter that starts breaking down. Now all of a sudden we're putting bad fuel into a carburetor and we're having to clean or replace a carburetor. That's a lot more expensive and a lot larger pain in the butt. Starting this saw, put this cover back on, make sure that's in place. First step is we've got all our safety gear on, we've got our good fuel and oil on, we've got our chain tension set. We're just gonna stop there. We're gonna set the brake. So this going forward engages a brake. That's a good opportunity. Let's look at this brake mechanism. So here's my clutch, right? Spinning. Forward, there's a band that clamps around and now that clutch won't spin, okay? That's a safety mechanism. The purpose of that is if I'm cutting and with the tip of the bar usually, it catches, it hits something and it comes up, boom, kicks back. That brake engages before bad things happen. I appreciate the brake from that standpoint, but I always use the brake when I start a saw because I'm not in control and when I'm moving with the saw. So I've made a bunch of cuts and I want to move from this tree to that tree. I'm simply going to set the brake, walk over and do my next cuts. So to start the saw, brake on, squeeze the trigger all the way down to choke, okay? So this lever, right now we're in the on position. I squeeze the trigger, push all the way down to choke. 1, 2, 3. Almost always it's the third pull that's gonna fire. Sometimes we get lucky and it fires on the second pull. And this is when cold, not hot, right? So it's gonna pop, vroom. I wanna start. I manually now move this lever up 1 notch, 1 click. This is where it's gonna start. I pull the rope, it starts. It's gonna be at a high rate of speed. It's gonna be going, vroom. Take the trigger, click it. It moves up to the idle position. Take the brake off, we're good to go to town. Always recommend letting that saw warm up for a half a minute to a minute before just going hoss on that thing and really working hard. Let it warm up. Life of Chainsaw will appreciate it. It has a return to run kill switch, so I kill it, boom, it's back. So, you know, I shut it off for whatever reason, 5 minutes, it's ready to start again, pull the rope, go to work. The STIHL MS 182 chainsaw, great, lightweight, 2.2 horsepower, awesome saw for cleaning up around your property. Just a good companion saw to a bigger chainsaw. I think I covered all kinds of stuff. I'm sure there's more, so if you have this, it wouldn't be a bad idea to peek through this and read more, or stop by your dealer. Come by Carl's Mower and Saw and be like, hey, I don't understand this, or I forgot how to do this. Let us help you get the most out of your STIHL MS 182. We look forward to seeing you soon at Carl's Mower and Saw.